So, anyone would like to share about what it means to be kind? Yes.
Kindness is try not to disturb the flow of nature.
Not to disturb
the flow of nature.
Flow of nature. Then Kurangi samsang la na sangbo che la di namjung anzo gi rangshin gi ni chungrim ro jo ra da. Koryo gi chungrim na rangshin gi chungrim de la sra ni nutse ma che de la dabjo ma che. O tinde chi lo kobores. With regards to environment or yes. Anyone else? Yes.
Maybe it's like overlooking with an open heart and thinking of the best benefit of your others.
Tine lokha kuyang bo che ra ani rang da shen ni ja la ni phe. Tinde chi cha ju chi lo kobores.
Kindness is really understanding, and really understanding what somebody needs at the moment, and trying to find a way to give that to them.
Tine Kurangi samsang la dis ra ni samshi che de res ra mi chi la ni kap khare la khare ani gokho yo re la ju ra. Ti ni gokho di koyang gi thapshi che ra gokho de la samshi che. Yes.
Kindness can be also explained as being empathetic towards the other beings.
Ti tarang rit mission da la ni samshi che ju ra. O ti.
Strong spine, soft heart. Strong spine, soft heart.
Strong spine of heart.
Strong spine, soft heart.
Ale. Di la ita da Kurangi ning ju ra ti chakbo la ne top chimbo.
ning top chimbo.
ning top chimbo cha sa. ning top chimbo. Tene ni geba chakbo. Kare na don le che tu ni ra u ju ra.
ning top chimbo geba chakbo. Okay.
Koshinda lana digres. Yeah. Shinge che do ni remen che jo ra molam jabe. O tin de chil. Shin mi shinge che do molam da ngo ja jo ra. Tin de.
Yeah. 네, 저 차이더라. 네, 레시아고니. 소됐다. 저랑 저기 세모도 단도 저랑 정말 라주들에 테스트 저이지더라. 베트코르디rel나 마임바로. 이내 차세 디나로 쓰디니도. 근데다 마치 엔더로리샤. 갈라는 땅아서 지난기 semba zambol에 단나 알아서 거는 나시고는 지시오이나라. 라신이 라다 신이디. 대원들보다 동료면도 지통이 봐라. 디 담보선 땅에 뺏게 좀다. 라. 근데 단도 저런 저기 레게도 젬바 땅에 라데 레레고 젬바 가지 당올라나. 파기들 강이 지티요. 라. 강이 지티는 강이들 줘야지 젬바 당올. 라. 다디 강이디 nga라 튀는 깔래 가지요서. 라. 디 내 돈에 지무도 나시기 파기 강이 튀디니들 돈에 제야라 깔래요라. 근데 인자 아는 것도 젬바 당오라. 다가들랑들 수도다. 근데 지부고 말아. 라. 근데 인자 근데 이 강이 nga라 튀는 간데 있을래. 디가라 간저기 파기기 미드다 소소니데 지충로. 라. ngala dunge mende banachi kholen de maris ngala dewan de banachi kholen de tinde gi loji yo ina nganzo gi pensen le nganga shushu gi ligo ra rani chipu na ani shen kar chino chungla di lo de ngado ra phagile injata nyamdo ta thuni jine changzo gi la ya zon pe akbodo ra modende ro tambo de la ra.
So then as I listen to all of your sharings with regards to the question, what does it mean to be kind? then it really touches upon a lot of important things. And even though it does not, the discussion didn't really kind of come down to one particular thing, but I think it touched upon very important things. And now, from the Buddhist perspective, when we say we need to cultivate a kind heart, then it comes first not from being kind-hearted, in a sense like it's a customary obligation as a human being to be kind-hearted. It comes from a place of contemplation first. For example, it comes from this basic simple acceptance that as human beings, as sentient beings, me and others, ourselves and others, are the same and equal in wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. So this is the radical acceptance which must be cultivated. This attitude must be cultivated before we can effectively practice kind-heartedness in our actions. Because if we are able to accept this very basic fact that we are all same and equal in wanting happiness and not wanting suffering, then kindness or being kind-hearted is a natural consequence of this acceptance of the fact. And for example, one of us talked about how being kind means being generous in giving something to others. So even when we think about being generous, then the fact that we are able to be generous with our time, material things and so forth, comes from the appreciation that if you yourself are in the situation wherein you are in need of something, and if you do not get that, then you go through a lot of problems and suffering. So it comes from that appreciation, that you are that appreciation. So it comes from this basic acceptance of the fact that we are all same in wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. You are able to kind of put yourself in others' place, and then understanding that if you yourself are suffering through the same thing, then it will be tough for you. So as such, you try to alleviate the suffering of others through that understanding. So before we begin to think about being kind-hearted or being kind in our actions, we need to first accept this very basic fact that we are all equal in wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. Yes. So then, does your idea of being kind-hearted relate to this idea of accepting the equality of human beings or sentient beings in wanting happiness and not wanting suffering?
Okay. Today that pen tagi me jemata le de taro. Pakangi yuji la ku dikangi de seji. Susu din dugum do ani pagi de kangi dugum mare te insa nge robachi to yone nge chigi le ro chigle gora. Ani dunge le tharte le de taro. De le gora. Ra pu sam ta waina ko dunge na de karlana. Ngala dunge de na ngala kale ra. Ani di dunge di ani susu randi le pen o ta pekale khawujirishati ani tele thetho jogudu la de dina tsugudo ani sosu ne tang jen la denja chetan jen la denja la ngam samta peke chomuda ra chitang ge sosu lumba inare chimsa inare gyakha inare denja de peke chomuda ra anju kala orda chik saja shamba jala chik denja me baina nganju dina ja me baina nganju sulu ta undin kangi thida ra ata dine chamasin dine majung washo ne ro chik sangwe shlido denja de peke chomuda kha draw in ra ta chang nganju denja la de zamda nganju kechi shedang hi mile chila phoya da oda ta chik do da pe na gothi ro ina ku kechi shedang da chena le ta ji mandina denja sama thu ra denja de thu la de jela ma thu ya dam le da chetan pe to ke chomuda ani chi de ka semba zambu chago ba jen la ne ba ma jong de ra jen la ne ba chen jen la kangi thi ra 티 라라 강이도 문제 받는 데 콘도 참 레디니로 오더라. 대체 지기 소소 샹바 땅서 장 세상 차고바 셈 잠보 자고지 제 초라 스투 추카버다 디셔라 하면 갈래. 다 간다지 용 파기라 샹바 공고 받아야리고라. 파기라 지 강이데 트스나 아니 딜라지 먼저 샹베기 로쳐. ra te din da li du ane rashin ji se ta chikan zu dabje ma yon ro chik dabsik rashin samala ke je shetan ina re chetan le tan chikan zu zamza susu gosung gi cheba ketan gi tene phagile do che ma bu ji do ra to zo la yang za ta ji che go de ke cham do ra ane loka kuyang bu chi go re la shara loka kuyang bu da simba zambo ingere ta te kalolo chunji ji la sa nero ma inda da lansa di ji pe kusu to ma inga sa je je cham zo wa ina ta de simba zambo kon to le gi ro sang dra ane sanghi che ta gara chi ba cha go ra samkhi la di gala susu la dine ji una kan ka zu phagi lo na tine azuna da rangi lu la pe la ne je la ne ba ma je la shi le go ra rangi lu la kan ka zu le 대가 나시 파게 들어 오르래 디가 다 소소기 류라 펠라네 아니 파게 데둘라 산타네 아니 가서 들은 거 터치 라 근데 이 등에 마요 야치 되서라
So then I'll just go through the sharings and try to kind of put your sharings within the framework of this Buddhist understanding of where does compassion, where does kindness really come from? Where is kindness born from? So we heard about alleviating the suffering of others, having a sense of concern for the well-being of others, welfare of others, and then also we talked about having love for others, not harming others, and being open-minded, not being narrow-minded, and then being empathetic, and so forth. So now, when we place this within the framework of this understanding, that first we need to accept the basic fact that all of us are similar in wanting happiness and not wanting suffering, then naturally we have a sense of concern for others' well-beings. We would not pursue our own selfish concerns at the expense of the welfare of others. So with this sense of concern, then there is the possibility for empathy, sympathy, love, compassion, and so forth to grow forth. But without this simple acceptance first, then it is very difficult. We become narrow-minded without accepting this. We will only think about our own well-being, our own concerns all the time. So as we now place this within this framework of understanding of kindness and where it comes from, then we also have this example in Tibetan. We say that take the example of someone else's physical body and then take the example of your own physical body and then think about not inflicting harm on others. So as you yourself, if you are inflicted harm, if someone else inflicts harms upon your physical body, then think about the suffering that you go through. And then on the basis of that, develop a sense of ethical restraint in not inflicting harm to others. And so as such, we understand that in our society, when we think about the welfare of our personal welfare, our societal welfare, and so forth, it is important that we be mindful of our speech, actions, thoughts, attitudes, and behaviors, because as it is evident in this day and age, that even if our own well-being and our own welfare seems secure, but if the welfare of others are at risk, then it inadvertently affects our own well-being. So look at the relationships between nations. A particular leader of a nation must really be mindful of even the smallest speech that he gives, because this has a far-reaching consequence, not only on others' well-beings, but also on the well-being of his own citizens.
Da digi chiki kalan deba koma la dra deba koma de ta chi bare ko ki kangin ro kare no tila deba koma de ra phule ta phagi la chi so so ki sang ki che re chu do tini molam je di ke chambor ra ta chang ki so so ki lo chun da chi simje ta je dewa ji yum bo sho la ne mono je wen tam so so lo yu ko go ra ani ya di gali gali di lo tila mono je pa tila tene so so lo je cher do da ra 근데 라니 집어 많이 심지 당지 이치리 지 야부 중요 쇼라 하나자로 이나래 두주야다 칼라오다 semba zamba la warta chila sana tanjiro chagora ani kora itanda chikla de hita chembole hita chembole ta khare ni chepe ba sampe ba hipe ba dingira kepa thabula de khalle na hamste.
So then moving on, some of us talked about how kindness means being able to fulfill the needs of someone at a particular moment, and then one of us also talked about how kindness also relates to offering prayers for others. So I think this ties into the point that we already made, the point about fulfilling the needs for others. In order for us to come to a place wherein we actively motivate ourselves to fulfill the needs for others, first we need to accept the fact that just as I do not want suffering, others do not want suffering too. Now similarly, when we are talking about offering prayers or making prayers, then prayers need to be embraced with a motivation, and this motivation must be shaped by the attitude which accepts this basic fact. So in that sense, then the attitude or the motivation is very important, and this attitude and motivation must inform the prayer that is being offered. And now one of us talked about strong heart, soft heart or strong heart? Soft heart and strong spine. I mistranslated it, I'm sorry. Moi dilad sem jambo ra.
Ala
Sem jambo ani geba chapo la kisi.
ala ande de asana sem jamuleta semba zamboro da khalante de ya 다른 저 디제 가장 아주 더트는들다 미 심어도 하면서라 아니 디샤체 다른 람람선나선 뜻도 아니 제래 군다 던데 미시 하여라 문디 치오라.
So okay.
미국에서라.
Yes, so then that makes sense when you say soft heart, a heart that is embraced with love, compassion and so forth, and a strong spine means being able to kind of face and overcome all challenges along the spiritual path. And now moving on, I think there are 4 people's sharing that I still have to address from the first discussion in the first session, evening session, which we will kind of address it as we find time later on. But now we will go on to explore the actual root text itself, the 3 principal aspects of the path.
가장 미니스 질레에서 말아 그니 민도선스 가서 단단 가서 디시데는 마차 가르나 가서 콘솔레디 연구회기 미유다 아니 수수지 가르신데 저지티라 어디기 랜드 오칭가 단단 시데서 마치된데 오라 네 코라인데 질레야 디산스들랜드 아니 시초라.
So I think we have people who joined us later on, 2-3 people. So if you are not able to follow along with the discussions, just to make sure we are addressing the sharings of everyone with regards to the question, what is the purpose or what is the intention or expectation with which you are approaching this course. So later on, if you did not get a chance to share your expectations and intentions, then we will find the time to hear these sharings as well.
티체 아니 다 단단 들어와 단단들도 제롬 붙인 게 소마체 아니 제롬 붙인다 게루기 라마요나면나 체오라 니 코랑이 숨서들래 착하고 가 잡아라인들 송다 티체 다 단단 라지 조나 숨래 데 카레라나 아니 년중 샹세 양답에 따와송데 라 너무 뜻이고라.
So now the text that we will study first is the 3 principal aspects of the path. Now this particular text was composed by Rinpoche or Tsongkhapa, which is who is understood to be the most important teacher in the Gelugpa tradition of Tibetan Buddhism, and this particular text was composed at the request of his student Tsakho Thangpa, and now, as the title itself suggests, 3 principal aspects of the path referring to the spiritual path. So what are the three principal things that one needs to cultivate along the spiritual path. And these three principal things are, at the outset, a sense of renunciation, or simply a determination to be free from samsaric suffering. Then, secondly, the awakening mind of bodhicitta, an altruistic intention to be of benefit to others. And then, thirdly, the wisdom of emptiness.
이네 다 코로나 좀 만다시 좋은데 인주 상세한테 따와디 갈리갈리 싱그레 섬들아 이걸마 갈리갈 튕으로 근데 이다 아니 담보치들 칼나 제전라만 남아 샤츠로 라다가 디다 주바주바로체 제전라마서 따수저 제위 라마다 아니 다 라마 무스기 라마 이나레 주베 라마 이나레다 근데 라마 고만 남아 아니 샤츠와 샤츠와라는 아주 류다 나다 이 순고네 아니 아주 샤츠라 데니신 샤츠니스.
So then we will now discuss each of these three things as we explore the text in detail. Now, as we start the text, it starts with the offering of prayers, homage to the homage to the precious noble masters, or homage to the most venerable teachers. So the masters herein refers to the spiritual teachers. So homage, even though it has been translated as homage, the original Tibetan reads prostrations to the precious noble masters or noble teachers. So herein the prayer is offered not only to his own direct teachers, but to the lineage of teachers through which these teachings came to him.
jewe sumru konji himbe tense jewe la digala jewa sanje la chandra ta sanje da na khande shawla na chi duba mali papa samba ani shije yende la soba la lotu jeba ta dudu jina ba chidang sanje yende shena pe mo bshere ine ya sanje la digala ta jewa tinde khande jesona sanje la yende tinde jena sang la digala nyu mo btsuri tha je sawada shije la lotu jeba jela sanje la ra jewe sumru 근데 산제디기 손샤주고 손으로 건지 힘부 된라 디갈라다 디갈라 단다 디갈라 년중도 자샤라게 신발 따임바 년중로샤 근데 손으로 건지 힘부 된스 아니 제세 담바남 징하벨람라 제세 담발라 근데 제세 상주 선발라 소바라 다 상주 선라주라 된데 두줄라 아니 제세 라오라 제세 상주 커서 제세 담바 아슬라디갈라 제세 임바 근데 상주 선바 담발라디갈라 지부 담바 지부 초도 주바 라 남지 돈주기야 카버체비기 콘조이네 데텔라 아우디 베 람디 야포둘라는 카버체비기 람들라 제세 담바 남지 하비 람라디갈라 디갈라 티땡도 샹셈 다 게덴 탄데르디 깨와데바 소놈다데바 덴데위 타바덴데위 가사 남지 덴데위 아니 유세기 시 종올라디갈라 가서 유세기 시도 그래서 와 타반데 되니 진 남게 dile nyashuche da dile bejonche dile lawjoche segi ani anjusegi shiro re la digala yan tabi tawat de.
So then now the first verse, it reads along the lines of the very essence of all the Buddha's teachings, the path that is praised by the noble bodhisattvas, and the entrance for all fortunate ones desiring liberation. To the best of my ability, I shall now set forth. So it's a promise of composition, and it also kind of outlines the topics that we will discuss in this particular text. So when we look at the first line, the very essence of all the Buddha's teachings. So first we need to understand what exactly is a Buddha. So a Buddha is technically defined as a being who has completely perfected all the positive qualities of the mind and has awakened from the obscurations of ignorance, delusion, and so forth. So someone who understands reality as it is, that is a Buddha, an awakened being. So the very essence of all the Buddha's teachings. Herein, the very essence of all the Buddha's teachings refers to the wisdom of emptiness, because all the teachings of the Buddhas directly or indirectly points towards emptiness. And then the path that is praised by the noble bodhisattvas. So bodhisattvas are referred to as noble beings. And so bodhisattvas are beings who have been able to awaken the altruistic intention of bodhicitta within themselves. So the path that is praised by the noble bodhisattvas refers to the awakening mind of bodhicitta. And then the entrance for all fortunate ones desiring liberation. So liberation from samsaric existence. So the manner in which one strives for liberation must first be informed by a sense of renunciation. So the third line refers to the determination to be free from samsaric existence and samsaric self-suffering.
다 기내 탄데나 중고 대라라 시터 뉴시 다 코랑게 지다 히마도 바도 저런 뭐 저기 좀마도 개요 말때 수수 가지 맞아야시더라 시터 뉴시라 등아랑 강투투치 라 시터 뉴시 다기 시벌 자스 되글 들레데 좀바 담자려 라 니이스다 강아랑 강투투치 시인스 다들레나 간다 시비들레다 냠바고 warle다 니스타 다 로말라 간다 시비델라서 간 시버 코에기 대와라 시비 데라 마차신 땅한테 마제 시버 코에기 대와라 차네 아니 쇼기니 군다바다 가서 딜질 주더라 대체 마차신 아니 덴저 자시 좀에 덴저를 따디가라 가서 파테 먼저 주제셔를 자체문다 근데 이제 가서 되게 틀어라 덴저 자시 좀 바인라디 가서 대화지는 좋았지래 저라 다 담보 드시는데 되는 게 디페시다
So then the first verse ends with, "To the best of my ability, I shall now set forth." So herein it's a promise of composition. So all the classical Tibetan spiritual texts start with such a promise of composition. And then there is also a statement of humility, "To the best of my ability." The author himself, in order to combat any sense of arrogance one might have in undertaking this task, makes this promise at the outset, that it makes a statement of humility and makes the promise to compose this text. So then now continuing, the second verse, it reads, "You who are unattached to samsara's pleasures and strive to make full use of the freedoms and advantages." Now herein, spirituality is not concerned about the samsaric pleasures, running after samsaric pleasures. Now when we look at the manner in which we live our lives, then if we observe it carefully, then we do not understand the fleeting nature of the pleasures that we run after. And the awakening door of spirituality is this understanding that indeed the pleasures of samsara are fleeting in nature, and as such one needs to cultivate a sense of detachment towards the pleasures of samsara. And now, you who are unattached to samsara's pleasures and strive to make full use of the freedoms and advantages. Now herein we have to kind of explore it a little further. What do we exactly mean by freedoms and advantages?
시상한서 미일루데래더라 잠자 미 카시엔도 니 밀루딜레 컬러다 진짜다 지 거박하임도 삼년인데 가시도 안 미삼다더라 시상한서 미일루데래데 개첨보다 지 수수기 타바다 탄지 쳔바기 근데 상노단에 아니 지 수수 제와이나 제 니바이 되니라 미 남지래데 심지 쳔바다 만라 남지 추도 치바치 간절이라 디 나로라 단단한서 딜레다 덴저를 대화지단 좋아질래지라 그런 디니티라 딩아서 다리 딩알 마테시 디나로도 춘지지 못도 문도데 코파 제바시야라 근데 덴저 대화지단 좋아져레스라 다 대화지데 가르라나 또 뒤에나
Las Thangpa Masheshanara. So now when we look at this particular verse, the first two lines of the second verse, "You who are unattached to samsara's pleasures and strive to make full use of the freedoms and advantages." So herein, I think it is important to kind of think about the fact that many people actually feel that they do not see a purpose to life. They do not see any meaning to life, and as such, they kind of lay waste to their lives. Now, from a Buddhist perspective, this human birth is very precious, simply for the fact that we are blessed with an intelligence to pursue spirituality as a practice. And then not only that, we have all the facilities, opportunities to effectively pursue a spiritual practice. So as such, the human birth or the human life is meaningful and purposeful in itself. Yes.
다 아니 간서 대화지라고라. 그래서 뒤에 뒤라 대화지 담보 도도체 아니 대화지 코랑이야 대히르르 자오라 뒤다지.
So then, this is exactly the point that is being made here, that when we sometimes feel that our lives lack purpose, meaning and so forth, from a Buddhist perspective, one needs to contemplate on the fact that there are freedom and advantages that are afforded only to human beings, that the human birth is characterized by these freedoms and advantages to pursue spiritual birth. So I think if you want, you can note these. We talk about 18 different freedom and advantages of the human birth in order to pursue spirituality. So we will kind of list them out, and then we will explore each of these further.
다 당보대 가서나라 아니 녀와 맞제 봐. 맞아 녀와를 제는 아니 주제는 다 대히 질래 와처라. 녀와를 맞제 봐체. 된로를 맞제 봐체. 아니 이달에 맞제 봐체. 된일 하츠름 불러 맞제 봐체. 아니 추 마타르위 유도 맞제 봐체. 아니 갈라도 라로기 좀 맞제 봐체. 렘바도 쿠베 유주 맞제 봐체. 로타체라 티지르시.
So then, out of these 18 freedoms and advantages, the first are the 8 freedoms. So freedom herein refers to you are free from the obstacles to practice spirituality. The 8 states where you have an opportunity to actually practice the Dharma. So then, these 8 freedoms are free from being born in hell, free from being born in the animal realm, free from being born in the hungry ghost realm, free from being born as a long-living god, free from being born in an uncivilized land, free from being born with incomplete faculties, free from being born with wrong views, and free from being born in a place where a Buddha has not come.
답변은 아니 가서 대화를 가져는 대가서 대볼 흘려도 저라 대화를 라 대화지를 계시 가서 여와는 지나 라 여와도 저에나 아니 사랑이 동에 당가서 여와라 사랑이 동에 요라오라 수수 용거와 수수 레ኛ라 사사이나 안티레기 동에 용거도 가라 최 제게 산노다 아니 콤바요 말라 대대 마대와 차로 디제 아니 된로로 오잖아 가서 미기 통고도 된로라 빼나練習 timu bal de konzo nije ta sheshin mare cheshin ma sanu ta ni ba yo marwa timu wan boye ba che timu wan ki ani chelo subi chibi ni ba yo mar pena ganzo phaju de chi de shimi de maranzo kanem kanilab je jana chida de tes shini de yor de ta soso ge lenye chasan ji la le ta ni ti gomru nyamle so ya de seba zambo so ya konzo ganzo lab tu khora mar ra tinde chechudin ganzo la sa de war ra ngaranzo ge kare yo ba de ganzo ha ko go de peke chamoda 디하 마고나 아니 소소를 통해 버려 차. 대 소소 춤 메저로지 내가 있는 담을 괜찮아 오치에로 근데 차도다. 그래서 소소 강의 바디 학고고에 디백게 좀 그러더라. 근데 당 디체 아니 최로 거의 니바 원데 스잖아요. 아니 콘조 근데 일단 심지 가실 거주기도 해요. 코로나 산타토에 니바 메바 마치 아니 미래서 싱가모야라 소바 아니 잘라 파크츠 그도 오야라 소바 근데기 뭐뭐 지기다 봐 근데기 강해지 예비 갈래 아니 취해야다 근데기 아니 콜라 콤로 요마라 산노 레토에 거려 요마라 지다 콜라 니바 요마레 근데기 강이 나대요 가조야 근데기 때나 제메바도 수수하고 그랬지라.
So herein as we list down all of these 8 freedoms, now we need to first understand what exactly do we mean by freedom. Now, if we look closely at the original Tibetan, then rather than freedom, it seems to point towards leisure. Leisure in the sense that there is a sense of calm as a consequence of not being born or not being in a state like that. we are at ease and we feel at leisure when we are free from obstacles, from challenging sets of conditions. So this is what we mean by freedom. Now as we list them down, when we look at these things such as freedom from being born in hell or being born as an animal, then it points towards the fact that when we think about the freedom of not being born in hell, then in hell you are beset by suffering all the time. The extremities of weather, extreme cold, extreme heat and so forth. So in such moments of suffering, you have no time or leisure at all to think about spiritual practice because your whole existence is consumed by suffering. And then similarly, now more practically, when we think about what we can see, animals being free from being born as an animal, then when we look at an animal, of course, animals do have a sense of intelligence, but compared to the discerning intelligence that a human being has with regards to cultivating a spiritual practice, such an opportunity animals do not have. They do not really have free will in a sense because they are domesticated, coerced into labor and so forth, and they are in some sense very dumb in the way that they go about their lives. So spirituality as a practice or as a pursuit never really occurs in that existence as in animals. So now the reason that we are encouraged to contemplate on these kind of freedoms or leisures that we have as a human being is because sometimes we really kind of waste our lives without appreciating all of these opportunities, advantages, and freedoms that we have as a human beings. Then we think about useless things, and then we kind of live our lives mindlessly, without any hope, without any purpose, without feeling that our lives do not have any meaning. If we are able to appreciate these freedoms, these leisures, these opportunities that are afforded, that we as human beings have, then maybe our lives become more purposeful, more meaningful. To your choose.
Yeah.
What's the word in Tibetan for freedom?
So this, even though it has been translated like as freedom, the original word in this context doesn't really say freedom in Tibetan. It means telwa. Telwa means leisure. Telwa. Telwa means freedom, to be at ease. Freedom means freedom like a rawa la.
Rawa la deal this little yeah. Chechela komoy tizu.
So if we look at the exact Tibetan word for freedom, then it means rawang. Rang meaning yourself, wang meaning to be in control of yourself, to be your own master in a sense. So the exact translation would be leisure in this particular context. We have the leisure, we have the time, opportunity, faculty, capacity to pursue spirituality.
What's hell in this context? As in, to be born in some other realm where boiling waters are there and
Yes.
things are there? Or there is also a kind of human life where they are exposed to extreme situations and they're suffering a lot? Maybe to be born in a war-like situation or to be hungry or in those extremities. I see that as
Hell.
extreme suffering as well that one could not think about maybe spiritual realization.
Tanda kap de la sra nganzu gi nyawa la jura. Ani nyawa la machi ba la di la di nyawa di ani nganzu gi da. Sacha shinda da bora. Ani doa gi rik shinda da buchi la ngunzi chi gi ra sra. Ani sacha shinda de la bet chukma na la ani su buse goya ra. Ani charangi dubu nyong goya. Tindeji la kogi yore soosra yana nyawa la dizuma korangi gerge samata yin dizuma makchu la sobala ani nyong de ngi yora tabet dubu ra shindu ne sokawa de nyong go yagi mi chewa la na nyawa la ne ani kogi yore besra ta susu chö nyam ne chego la sra susu lo loji do chungye la ani samlo de do ta na di yore bes
그래.
nyawa la na ra su su mikton la se gi chik
네네네.
me ne dubu suega dubu nyong hin ki ne dang chi la sam tong ma di gi ra
tātā ngā tō chūnchū nā lai kārasā yā na nyewa lai jī pē lōs chī mē bā rō shi rā pē nā tāntā chī rāngi nyewa kwa la shi yung dī kā la chāsī kī sāshī yō rā shi rā mō tsō la dī kā la anī chī mē sī yā tū yā kī chōnchā tā mā rā yō rā tēn lai chū rē hīnī yā tā tī kā la chāsī sāshī sī chī mō tsō ndē tā chī lē chū ngō sā tēn tā tē tā tāng chī chā dī sēn yī bā tū bē sōng lā rā tēn tā wī ngā tsū la nā wā la shā dē yā shi tō nā wā la shā yā shā wā tā tē sā pē nā mā tū mī kī tō 샤샤고로 뇽뇽고라 디샤고에디 가서 저 가만 알아서 리 라. 근데 자시 서지 쓰이지 무슨 데다 저 된다 대다 타지자 디자인부터 디 중대야 돼 통대야 돼 레대야 돼 더좀 갈라나 디베세 ingema 소소기다 디바 사샤주기 디긴 데부디 뇽뇽고레스라. 오늘인데 이 사지 셴바젤라 빼도 거라 뇽게 사샤를라네 배신감 로가 된데 요다 페지 배신 나올래 엔데 쓰는 겁니다. 답변은 준주 나올래 다가라 소요. 페 ngansugi chi de sesha joji phagila soni de tumiro mise meba inaya nyonggo goda ra ta tisan charang la bana si ma thu da mege da mampu ji le da to sama ta di su su ngema gi le gi sa sha jogi ra thu sha ju chi cha de gora to so nye khondo ro jire da
So then with regards to hell beings or the hell realm, maybe it is helpful to a particular instruction that was given by Shantideva in his text Bodhicharya Avatara, engaging the deeds of the Bodhisattva, wherein he encourages us to think about hell not as a separate realm as such, but try to think about hell in this manner, that even if we think of hell as a realm where like you are boiled in, you suffer in boiling water, you are cut by sharp weapons, you suffer through extreme heat, cold and so forth. All of these sufferings appear, manifest, and all of these sufferings are experienced due to the negative actions that one has engaged in, as a consequence of the negative actions that one has engaged in. And as such, where do these negative actions come from? It comes from a non-virtuous mind. So he seems to encourage us to think about the fact that all the appearance of our suffering and all the experience of our suffering comes, which we equate with hell and all these different realms, comes in essence from a non-virtuous mind. So if we are able to appreciate this, then maybe we can think about hell and these different realms of suffering in a different light. To know that the mind, when it is non-virtuous, begins to inform our actions, and these actions turn into negative actions, which brings us negative consequences, and these negative consequences manifest itself in the form of suffering. Now, with regards to the example that you cited, when you think about war-torn areas, conflict-ridden areas where people really do suffer through it, where do conflict, war, and so forth come from? It comes from a disturbed mind, which begins to engage in non-virtuous actions.
기능 알아서 리바타네 사실 찍레데라 제카티네 요바이나 야 미카시지도 그런 사야 또야 대사 참마 지랑이 전화 집어러스 지라 고유단 조아 참마 집어이네 어디 나로라 찍 셈바사기 저기 강이 트디니지도 라 티칼라네 소승이 얘기다 가서 레지 사여라 디기 아니 대부분 용고 디가라 네 라시기 찍고 콜라 마데와로 제가 미 실로 다니지네 그 참마 집어인 거야 지네 지냐 두느두냐 라 이네 수수인 경험하마게 레사당기 가실레 베이키오르 가실레 마치오르 디 마치오데 가르신 경험하마 수수기 레기 사샤베 디긴 데부디 라 데레야 가서 카드 뺄 세우토야도 라
So then if you have reservations or doubts about relating to hell as a different realm wherein you go through this set of suffering, then simply think about suffering and how suffering does not really relate only to being deprived of basic comforts of life. For example, there are countries where like there are countries in this world wherein all the material kind of comfort and as well as material comfort and material necessities are taken care of, but still there is suffering. And where does this suffering come from? It comes from a disturbed mind. And why is the mind still disturbed even when all the material comfort, material necessities are taken care of? It comes because there is an imprint left by a karma accumulated in a previous life, which now manifests itself in the form of mental suffering in this life. So look at it as an experience of suffering rather than as a different realm wherein like there are these sets of suffering.
시링아서 가르쳐는 파마치기 부고이나 부고 채마지나라 군이도 둘로요 단 한고다 둘로다 가리는 찌빠지자이 제와이나 라 칼라다 엄마 갈때는 찌빠지자이나 군이다 전화 만나와 실례 되지다 집에 선바 두데 집에 끼디로 진혀츠버도 자로 또삼죠 가마가마기 될 때는 중주라 따라시기 다 소소 제자 근데 이 디비센을 때는 중화를 라야 돼 다기 되기 다 전주나 손주들아 근데로 차이도 뭐 군이 집어인 거다 파만의 집바래 사만의 집바래 대산의 집바래 칼라의 집바래 집어지냐래 거야로 줘라 근데 되기입니다 제가 정 한번 수수기 디비센을 때는 안에 만다 중고에 돼 근데지래도
So this is exactly the kind of attitude towards suffering that is towards the contemplation of suffering that is advised by Shantideva in his text when he says that all of these different sufferings that we say manifest themselves in these manner really do come from the negative actions that we have engaged in due to the mind being disturbed by the afflictions. So the karma, the actions, the karma that we accumulated due to being influenced by a non-virtuous mind. So think about an example wherein we kind of think about suffering in terms of outside conditions, external factors, and this is not really the case, because, for example, think about identical twins born at the same time, raised in a similar manner, offered the same kind of care, nurturing by the parents. But there is a stark difference in the attitudes, behavior of these two identical twins. External factors, they are the same, but there is a difference in their attitude and behavior. One is grateful, other maybe not so grateful. One is close to the parents, the other is not so close to the parents. So why is there a difference in their experience? And so Shantideva, the point that Shantideva is making is that all our sufferings manifest themselves because of our minds being influenced and conditioned by afflictions.
네, 다든데 다 시바 숨바들다 이달에 cewa이나 아니 대고무 동이라 다 식사야 메비 동에 또야 메비 동에 근데 동에 된다 대와이나 간저 취체지다 땡거라 말아 라 너무 알레 소소 찍토고 자다 찍검세 찍디 디더니엔 로고 체다 배당 알아서 이마지는지 더 쉬워도나 취체야다 검자야다 땡을 러전 체 땡입니다. 담보 내가 그때 강의 대세에 팀마도 땡입니다. 제가 근데지 대와이나 아니 디야 무콤바 취체야라 무콤바라 단다 콤무 감서데 취체야라 콤무 가시오라 디제 아니 시바리가 하츠림보 타츠림 무슨 지당이 기부쇼지라고라 고란스기 다 라이 찌찌 마시바도 콜 피치우레스 케타니 아니 둥에 제라 요요 마라 둥에 문요데 취체야이 둥에 메방 연중메라다 데네 연중도 데네 삼바데 메와이나 취체야기로 제고 말 니마타바 니마 간체로 로데오라 데네 인사 하츠림 무디 제와이나 아니 인데 시미비 띵엔진라스 kelpe parta chidang de susuchi tenji sanje me parta dushe me bala etlido kebe pada jerbu chukure ne thu yu sarwa tene koran lai tsitsi ringbu che ani ta lai ta lo kewa da tongwa ta mambo tongta tene mambo shagirwa ti jogala model ani kola hakku gido ta ngai ladi chiai ba hakon 와 아니 코라 남들 할라 드마 잠보 카야다 유노노치 퍼슨 소바 요레스 딘데기 퍼슨 소바 요 아니 시지테야라오다 지 나제가 나지 동이라 소바 짜와니 거 땡겨요 말아 최제기 다코 콤물라나 칼로 최제기 제 로고로 제고 tene mo pachiwo chin de de ora thamat la ani khorang gi ta dna ching ji la ani khora shigre la dad khor leg do ra tene ko ni ga ani chara ta gi lu trima shimbu khadin de la lu trima nyamba khaya do thai roba do zena khora roba ma je ro tene gi chona le ge ge do so do ra tene le on ani ta la ser imbulanchi na tene shawars jezo khola tserin tane ani bedo khola nai ma tane ani chuche khomba yo mare la do do dir ra.
So then, moving on, now the third one is freedom, free from being born in the hungry ghost realm. So pret or preta seems to be the Sanskrit word for this particular realm. So the hungry ghost realm is marked by the extreme suffering of thirst and hunger. So try to relate it to your own personal experience. If you are beset by extreme thirst and hunger, do you really think about spiritual practices? So as such, in this particular realm, when you're suffering from extreme thirst and hunger all the time, then you do not really think about cultivating a spiritual practice at all. You do not have the opportunity. There is no space for such a thought or mind to develop at all. Then similarly, free from being born as a long-living God. Now herein, even though we understand, or maybe we look at it as being born as a God as something desirable, but with regards to the cultivation of spirituality as a practice, then it is not really favorable as to be born as a God, because gods have very, very long lives, and their lives in the God as gods are not marked by suffering as human beings. So as such, they do not really develop the wish to be free from suffering at all, because they do not really suffer a lot at all. And their lifespans are very long, and then they abide in the meditative equipoise, the bliss of the meditative equipoise for thousands of years. And as such, they do not really experience suffering head-on in the manner that we do. So this is not favorable or conducive for spiritual practice, because in order for us to cultivate spiritual practice, as we already discussed, the prerequisite is a sense of renunciation. So without the experience of suffering, there is no way in which such a renunciation develops, such a determination to be free from suffering develops. So as such, being born as a long-living God is not quite conducive for spiritual practice. And it is said that even though their lives are not marked by suffering, as our lives are, but as their lifespans are very long, at the moment of death, then the suffering becomes more pronounced. Because it's only at the moment of death they begin to realize that they can no longer live as gods. They have to pass on to take another birth. And then their physical body, which was so sweet-smelling before, begins to give in to bad odor, and then the company of gods begin to banish them from their circles and so forth. So at the moment of death, the gods, these long-living gods, really do suffer a lot. Yes.
Nachi dona ani chö mata singawa digara chö mata wi yudu chenara me imba ina chö tsawani ni chö pet kora min kora kwaya me bajira chewa ina ani ganzu ta chö che la khomba me bara jaji gi chö kora yomara odeni chiche ani la lor la da la lor ma che pas kesi la lor chewa ina jiten gi tola ani chö tarang su chö ta sa yudu chewa ina ya rani la chö teba mebe lalo la diga la chu yoba ina ra su chu la peta teba tsawani ni men bet ko taw lo jo ro ra ani mere che na yang su chu chin de ji samba tsawa de mi jo zan za khashi nda che la ni yo ma chi yin ma la de de ya taw lo jo do yo ra ta di shi de lalo le.
So then moving on, freedom from being born in a place and time where a Buddha has not come. So a Buddha has not come herein refers to free from being born in a place where the Dharma has not spread at all, where the teachings have not spread at all. And then free from being born in uncivilized lands. So in order for a spiritual tradition or a teaching to come into existence, to survive, then there needs to be faith conviction among the people in spirituality as a practice. So if you are born in an uncivilized land wherein people do not have any conviction in spiritual practice, they think that life has no meaning, purpose at all, then spirituality as a practice cannot be cultivated at all or pursued at all. Yes.
Tene lemba da kupa raya michewa ina ra michewa sanji digimda ya michewa na chige sosonne leba ge lega chima tuni tene ra len shi kupa la de pashe ma shi ra ma che ba tene ani rani chule teba yoba kesi teba ro shi lo na lo la yoba ina ya len ku su che na che chi tsu me shi che kandes che wa ha ko ma ra tende chi che.
So then, moving on, free from being born with incomplete faculties. Now, faculties herein refers to sense faculties as well as mental faculties. We do not have any kind of physical handicap, physical handicap in the sense that we can hear, see, we can process information, we are able to communicate effectively. Even if you are born as a human being, if you have these kind of handicaps, then it is a little bit difficult to pursue spiritual practice effectively. Less.
Tene lota chewayna ani karata ta chedo konjo karina ra susu chulu karina lama da samala ani teba me tando lopata wa yo mare chi tene rola de chawra yo bachela me batawa tala ani loparta wa tene che cheto ta tene da nga chu misi de ngone hora tanda tenji jojo sa tewaji de cha de ra susu la cha yo ba de troa chebi gani ani tizo thola madane ani nyamne che da chula ni chigi lo che de peke che martara manzu dinde jile che da manzu thongda mi ina mi kashi mi ba ina nje le basana ta ma tu ni ra susu che che da pasha susu to ge che ma tu mi ro ba lo de ge tinde manzu thongda ngara dinde le che yo marara manzu la ta goya susu ge nam je yo re susu le chi chi tu na ani chigi mi thongya da anju khoya ro da ta khani chama cha de da ra dinde susu ta kalor soso la ya di yende de changdo sna ga go goni ani cheche de beke chamda ra.
So now the last of these 8 freedoms is free from being born with wrong views. Now herein wrong views refers simply to a complete denial of reality itself. We begin to deny what exists. For example, the law of causality, karma, action and their consequences. From a Buddhist perspective, the 3 refuges, the 3 objects of refuge, the Buddha as a teacher, and so forth. Now you can begin to relate it to any other kind of tradition or understanding. When you begin to deny what exists, or when you begin to deny reality itself, this constitutes bearing wrong views. So now as we discuss these kind of freedoms or leisures that we as human beings have, then it is important to understand that through contemplating on the fact that we are not, we indeed do have all of these qualities as human beings to be able to effectively pursue spiritual practice, then we need to develop a sense of joy and appreciate these qualities that we are afforded. Because even as human beings, there are people who cannot even think for themselves because their sense faculties are incomplete. Not only can, let alone pursuing spiritual practice, they struggle to kind of fend for themselves, to make a living for themselves because their sense faculties are incomplete. But we are not like that. We have all our sense faculties intact. We are capable. We have all of these freedoms as a human being to pursue spiritual practice. So as such, we need to live our lives with a sense of purpose. We need to rejoice in these qualities that we have, and we need to approach our spiritual practice informed by this sense of joy and appreciation. Yes.
Ani nga ranjong ga de ni jenjong ga de ni go jela shi ra. Ani tanda shilai ti che.
So we will discuss the 10 advantages in the sessions in the afternoon, after lunch. And at this point, we will break for lunch.
Yeah.
Please do enjoy your lunch.